Still no sign of Mauricio Pochettino, or no official word about Mauricio Pochettino, but Mikey Varas, the USMNT interim head coach, has named his first and hopefully only roster for the September camp for games against Canada and New Zealand on September 7th and September 10th. It's a good roster. It's a great roster. It's everything you could reasonably expect from the roster. It is almost all our best players playing in Europe, minus a few guys who are injured or need rests for one reason or another. And we'll talk about that. You know, I was worried that with Mikey Varas, maybe there would be guys like Miles or Walker or Shaquille Moore. You know, with Dest injured, I was like, please, God, not Shaquille Moore. It did not turn out that way. You know, it is a largely European-based roster, except for, you know, Tim Ream and Patrick Schulte. But, you know, Diego Kochen, for me, is one of the highlights of this roster, right? He is the future, hopefully, of the goalkeeping position. And this is whether or not he plays, to call him up and say, look, we believe in you, and we believe that you are part of our long-term plans, right? He's been capped at the U19 level and the U17 level. So now we're saying, hey, Kochen, don't listen to Spain. Don't listen to anybody else who's interested in you. We want you, and we're going to demonstrate that with a senior team call-up. And that's showing our belief and our faith in him, and I like it. Overall, it is a very, very good roster, injuries and other exclusions notwithstanding. And we're deep enough that even with the injuries and other exclusions that we have, we still can call up a very good roster. And that's a sign of progress for our player pool, right? There's plenty that needs work, and there's plenty of growing that we need to do with this player pool, particularly in certain positions. But it is easy to forget that 5 years ago, if we had, you know, Tyler Adams, Tim Weah, Sergino Dest, Kevin Paredes out injured, you know, Anthony Robinson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Weston McKennie, who are the other exclusions. If we had all those guys out injured, we would have been seeing the likes of Kellen Acosta or Jordan Morris or Sebastian Lletget or Shaquille Moore or Aaron Long or even, as you know, Miles. So to have all these injuries and exclusions for one reason or another and to still have a very good roster is a sign of progress, and we can celebrate that and be happy about it. Well, before we dive into the roster, let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
Fantasy Sports is back with a new and improved pick'em game across all sports that makes it easy to play fantasy sports with just a few clicks. Each sport allows you to build a parlay that includes between 2 and 5 predictions about the outcomes of player projections. As you would expect, the more picks you include, the greater the potential payout. Don't go crazy with it and play responsibly, but adding a few bucks here and there to a game gives it a little more excitement and stakes. Use my promo code 11YANKS or click the link in the description to start playing, and Underdog will match whatever you put in your account up to $100. Enjoy!
And where does the game start? If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you know, put your answer in the comments. But yeah, I still use them. Let's just dive into this roster, guys. A quick bit of news before I do, not to be a downer or anything. There won't be a top 10 today because this video is coming out today. Taco has been diagnosed. For those of you who don't know, Taco's my dog. He's been diagnosed with lymphoma, and he doesn't have too much longer left. We're doing some special things with him this weekend. So that's why there won't be a top 10, but I did want to do this roster video. You know, before we dive into the roster, let me just address the Pochettino thing too, because some people have said, Pete, at what point should we start getting worried that Pochettino's still not announced? And it's a fair question, right? It's like they've been saying, you know, all the reports from all kinds of play, including the players, are like, yeah, Pochettino's coming. U.S. Soccer cannot officially announce it. You know, is it Chelsea? That's the problem. It seems like that's the issue. There's still negotiations with Chelsea in order to work out whatever details there are from his contract. I don't know all the details, and probably legally U.S. Soccer cannot announce it or even address it in any official capacity until it is sorted out. So thank you, Chelsea, for continuing to hurt the USMNT in ways that only you can. I'm not super worried because I don't think that there would be this much reporting about it if it was not essentially a done deal. But I kind of get where people are coming from if they're concerned, you know, about, is Pochettino actually coming? Are we going to end up, like, is it going to fall through at the last minute? You know, is Manchester United, you know what I mean? Like, is something going to happen that is going to destroy the first piece of good news we've had in years as USMNT fans. I understand that anxiety, and I understand the trepidation about that. I'm still optimistic. I hope they get it done sooner rather than later, and God forbid, please get it done before the October camp. Get it done, U.S. Soccer. What, Chelsea? Get it done. Thank you. All right, let's talk about this roster. So, 4 goalkeepers. Matt Turner, recently of Crystal Palace. Ethan Horvath of Cardiff City. Patrick Schulte of the Columbus Crew. And Diego Kochen. So, like I said, earlier, Diego Kochen is a sign. It's a statement of intent. We believe you're going to be a big part of this program for a long time, and we want to show you that early. He's been starting for Barca B, which is good to see. And so far, playing quite well early days. The only real player in our youth pool, or in our goalkeeping pool, period, that is good with his feet. That's just the truth, guys. Gaga Slonina, Patrick Schulte, Gavin Beavers, Chris Brady are all young. Neither of them is great with their feet. Can they improve? Marginally, yes. 5%, 10%, maybe 20%. But generally speaking, the basic technique that you need to be able to play well with your feet under any kind of pressure is already there by 2021. And if it's not there, it's going to be hard to, they're not going to become Ederson. You know what I mean? They can maybe improve marginally, and I hope they do, right? But overall, I have to say, Diego Kochen is the one that stands out on both sides of the ball, right? Both with his shot stopping, which many of our other keepers do as well, but also with his feet. And I'm very happy that we called him in. You could argue, well, why not Gabriel Slonina? Guys, Gabriel Slonina is playing in the 3rd division of England. I know he's generally playing well. I have watched every touch he has had on the ball for Barnsley. And I got to say, it's bad. He's been very good with his, reading of the game, his coming off his line, his shot stopping, his positioning, his command of his box. I've been very happy with. And that's what's earned him man of the match honors in I think, at least one game. But he's very, very nervy on the ball. When there's no pressure, even sometimes you see it's like a deer in headlights, and it's worrying. I would not call him up right now, right? He's got to earn that spot. And you say, well, Pete, what about Diego Kochen? Doesn't he have to earn that spot? Yeah, that's a fair criticism. And maybe I'm applying a double standard here, but I believe that Diego Kochen's future or ceiling is significantly higher than Gaga Slonina's. And with Spain potentially coming sniffing, I do believe it's the right move to call him in. Now, maybe you could have brought Gaga instead of Ethan Horvath. What has Horvath done to deserve it? I could get on board with that, right? Or, even Matt Turner. But overall, I really don't have any complaints about this. I'm very happy to see Diego Kochen there. Schulte didn't, glow at the Olympics. There were some errors there, but he's generally been quite reliable for Columbus, so I understand this call-up too. Overall, let's see who starts. If it's me, depending on how Kochen performs in training, I might give him 45 minutes against New Zealand. This is not a cap tie him because it's a friendly, so it still wouldn't technically cap tie him. But it would, again, just be a statement of, hey, we believe in you. Have 45 minutes against New Zealand. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what Mikey Varas actually does. Let's move on to fullbacks. And with Sergino Dest out and Anthony Robinson out, so our 2 starting fullbacks are out. And we have Joe Scally, Marlon, Fossey, Christopher Lund, and Caleb Wiley. Caleb Wiley recently made the move to Chelsea, who in turn loaned him out to Strasbourg, and he's played twice for them already. Anthony Robinson, so Dest, obviously, if you don't know, he's got that ACL tear, won't be back until January. Anthony Robinson just needed a break. This is what U.S. Soccer said, that he had 2 surgeries in the offseason, and he's been playing a lot of minutes over the last year, so this was an opportunity to give him a break, which I'm fine with, right? We need to establish a good backup to Anthony Robinson if something actually happens to him, and these are friendlies. Why not give Lund 1 game and Wiley 1 game and just see how they perform, right? It's like there's a fight going on, and there's not just these 2, right? John Tolkien is trying to make a case. Other than that, I'm not sure. Nathaniel Brown's been playing with Germany's youth team, so it's hard to make a case for him. Younger than that, you've got maybe Nolan Norris coming through at Dallas. I'm not super high on him. Peyton Miller getting some time at New England. There's some younger options, but realistically, these 2 are the guys fighting for that spot, along with maybe Tolkien. And let's see what they can do in this camp. Marlon Fossey, actually I think he has 0 caps. I don't know why it says 2. That's the classic one mistake per stream. By the way, do you guys like my Orange County jersey? I went to a game yesterday. Orange County SC in the USL. It's a great jersey. I love it. But back on track, Pete. Yeah. So probably Joe Scally will start both games. Maybe Fossey will get 45 minutes. He plays for Standard Liège. He's 25 now, and he will be 27, not 21 in 2026. I think, look, if Dest is out, some people would say, well, what about Brian Reynolds? Yeah, he could have been there. I think Fossey and Reynolds are probably of similar, ability. Then there was Richie Ledesma, who's played a few games now for PSV to start the season. They brought another right back in. He isn't going to start for them at right back. He's not really a right back. I wouldn't have probably called him in, although I wouldn't have had an issue with it. I think giving Marlon Fossey a look, he hasn't had an opportunity to show what he can do. All the other right backs has. Shaquille Moore has, Yedlin has, Harriel has with the Olympics, and then obviously Reynolds has had some time too. So give Marlon Fossey a look and let's see what he looks like. Maybe he'll impress. He's been sort of quietly consistent over in Belgium, so, why not? But we'll see what either Wiley or Lund can do. Center backs is quite interesting. We have Mark McKenzie, recently of Toulouse in Ligue 1, Ligue Uber Eat. And then you've got Tim Ream, recently moved to Charlotte FC. Chris Richards of Crystal Palace and Auston Trusty, who recently made the move from Sheffield United to Celtic. Yeah, so Cameron Carter-Vickers has a toe injury. That's why he was not here. The question is, who was his replacement? Was it Trusty? Was it McKenzie? Was it Ream? It probably wasn't Richards. I'm just happy not to see Miles or Walker here because I thought, for sure one of them is going to be there, but no. And honestly, this is probably the pool we should be looking at for 2026, right? Along with CCV. Those 4 of them will probably make it in 2026, unless one of the young center backs like Jalen Neal or, Josh Winder potentially still playing with Benfica B, Noah Kai Banks. There's some young guys coming through, but nobody's really said this is my spot. And let's be honest, neither has a Trusty or McKenzie or, even Richards hasn't been great for the national team. But this is a chance, I believe, and I do think we have to move on from Tim Ream over the course of the next 2 years. He will be 38. Playing now in MLS for the next 2 years. Whether you want to believe it or not, his level will drop, guys. It just will over 2 years. And he is getting older, and his level was already dropping over the last year. So it's really about, who's the pairing, and not just the pairing, but who's the group for 2026. This is the first roster looking in that direction. And I also agree with people who say, yeah, we should phase Tim Ream out, but we shouldn't just get rid of him completely and hand his spot to somebody else. Somebody should have to beat him to it. And I think that's a fair statement as well. So that's the center backs. I would like to give some minutes to both McKenzie and Trusty in this camp. Maybe not even necessarily as starters, but 45 minutes apiece in 2 different games, potentially, or maybe let one of them start. These are friendlies. It's time to experiment and try things. Trusty hasn't had opportunities with the national team recently. Midfielders, Johnny Cardoso, Aiden Morris, Yunus Musa, Giovanni Reyna, Malik Tillman, and Luca De La Torre. So this is where we have some exclusions, right? Tyler Adams is injured. Weston McKennie is still in preseason mode, according to the men's national team, to U.S. Soccer, which is probably coming from Juve. I don't know why he started training so late compared to everybody else. You could say Copa America. Yeah, everybody here was in Copa America too. Weston McKennie needs to get his shit together. Really, really does. I mean, they're not starting McKennie. He's not going to play much, especially now that they signed Coop Miners. So this is what happens. Like people say, yeah, McKennie had a good season last year. I agree. He did. And then he put on a bunch of weight and had a terrible summer and tried to force his way out and it didn't work. And he's really going to have to work very, very hard to get Thiago Motta to believe in him again. And he can do it. Certainly he can. But it's going to be an uphill climb. And he needs to get serious with discipline, with his diet, with his focus, with his radiance, as Dortmund likes to say with Gio. So I'm kind of glad that McKennie was excluded. He is the oldest in the team, not named Tim Ream or any of the goalkeepers, right? And he's one of the leadership council, but his recent behavior for the national team has not at all been leadership worthy. So good. But there's a head scratcher too with Luca De La Torre, because he hasn't played. He's been injured for Celta Vigo and just came back, but hasn't played a single minute. Would it have been better to give Tanner Tessman a call-up? Maybe. Tanner Tessman did just move to Lyon, and so they're probably trying to get him to settle in and focus. He didn't have much of a preseason either. But Luca De La Torre should be on notice. This is a very deep part of the team. For all the problems we have at midfield, we're very deep in every single position. And to still have a good quality 6 players with, McKennie, Adams. Oh, and by the way, Leonard Maloney also got injured today in the Heidenheim game. So that's 3 guys that are out, and we're still able to feature. Aiden Morris, look, has gone to Middlesbrough, and it's the championship, but he's settled in nicely. He's playing well for them. They're very happy with him. And he did the right thing by leaving Columbus and going to a better league and pushing himself. And they're very pleased with him so far. And hopefully he can continue to grow as a player after a terrible, terrible Gold Cup. If you remember, that was the last time he played for the national team. And then he mysteriously went missing during the group stage. Nobody knows why, from the roster, that is. But he's back, and he looks to be playing well for Middlesbrough so far. So let's hope he can continue, and maybe he gets a look in this camp or not. Giovanni Reyna has played 10 minutes in 3 games for Dortmund, and doesn't look like he's really in their plans. I know there's all these things coming. Oh, his radiance is really a part of Nuri Sahin. I mean, blah, blah, blah. That's all talk. That's all talk until I see him play on the field. They needed a goal against Werder Bremen. I'm talking about before the sending off. And they brought on 3 attackers not named Giovanni Reyna. So it's hard for me to believe that he's really in their plans, if not only is he not starting, but he's not in the first 3 attackers off the bench, especially because he actually played quite well in the 10 minutes that they gave him last week. It's confusing with Gio. And honestly, I would not have been, because it's a friendly window, okay, because it is a window, maybe it wasn't going to happen because there were too many other exclusions and injuries. But when everybody's back and healthy, if it's a friendly window and Pochettino says, you know what, Gio, I'm leaving you out for this one. Okay, you need to figure out your club situation. Maybe he should have pushed for a move this summer, right? Maybe he should have demanded a loan if he wasn't in their plans. Or maybe they told him he was in their plans and he's not. Like, it's just hard to know what's happening over there. But Gio needs to get playing time one way or another. Either you fight your way in at Dortmund, claw and scratch your way into more playing time, or you accept that maybe you're not good enough for Dortmund now and you need to go somewhere else to rebuild that career. Whether that's Hoffenheim or Gladbach or Ajax, or Lyon. I don't know. Like, I feel like it is incumbent on Gio now to really get playing time. He'll be 22 in November, so not really that young anymore. Of course, he has plenty of time. But Gio's here, and we know this about Gio. He plays well for the national team, especially when used as a 10. I hope Mikey Varas doesn't use him in a double pivot. I hope he's used as a 10. Malik Tillman playing very well for PSV to start the season. Really just picked up where he left off last season. The problem for Malik was in roughly 400 minutes, he never played well for the US. 2 things. People will say, well, what do you expect with only 400 minutes? Sure, you don't expect much. I'll admit that. In 400 minutes for the national team, Gio already had in his first 400 minutes, Gio already had 5, goal contributions, I believe, because he had a goal against Panama, goal against Northern Ireland, and then a goal and an assist against Mexico. So 4, right, in his first 400 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, I believe that Tillman can be something great. He needs to show up for the national team. Was Berhalter hampering him in some way? Very possible. It's kind of a fresh start or a clean slate for some of these guys who did not perform under Berhalter, right? And even for the guys that did perform under Berhalter, it's a bit of a clean slate. What are you going to do? And we won't know because this is not Pochettino's camp. It's Mikey Varas' camp. I don't think Pochettino had any say in this roster since he's not officially the coach, but maybe he did behind the scenes. It's like, we don't know because it's just been all mum from US Soccer. So they're not going to tell us anything. So we have to draw whatever conclusions we can or just admit that we don't know. And then the wide forwards is about what you expect. Christian Pulisic, Haji Wright, and Brendan Aronson. And, with Tim Weah injured, that's about right. Is there anybody who maybe deserved a look? You could argue for Griffin Yao. Taylor Booth isn't even starting for Utrecht. Maybe Paxton Aronson. Kevin Paredes is also injured. Alejandro Zendejas. I mean, nobody is oh my God, that guy should absolutely be here. I wouldn't have minded seeing Griffin Yao. I thought he got his first start for Westerlo against Genk on the weekend, and I thought he looked pretty good. Very good, actually. And Maybe this winter he gets a move. Doesn't look like he's getting one now. But this is about right. You know, Brendan back playing at Leeds, sometimes great, sometimes not. Classic Brendan. But for this kind of a camp, sure. You know, let's get a look at some guys in the future, though. You know, I think Griffin Yao continues to perform. He should be called up, and hopefully Tim Weah comes back and Paredes comes back, and then it's a bit more competitive. Hopefully Taylor Booth gets some time with Utrecht, because it's really no progress for Taylor Booth in the last few years. And then the forwards are also what you would expect. Folarin, Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, and Josh Sargent. Balogun's had a terrible start to the season. Pepi and Sargent have not. Pepi hasn't played, but he played today, he played last week, and he played the week before. He's got 1 goal. Sargent has 2 goals and an assist already. These are the guys. These are the 3 guys really for the next 10 years. I can't see anybody breaking through and challenging these 3 for that number 9 spot. The 3 of them will fight for 2 or maybe 3 spots. Who's going to break through? Not Duncan Maguire, not Brandon Vasquez, not Jesus Ferreira, not Jordan Pefok. So these are the guys, but only one can start, probably. So let them fight it out, and I'm fine with whoever, right? I'm fine with whoever fights it out. Maybe Sargent should get a look. The way that he started the season, and with Balogun in poor form, we also haven't seen Sargent really since the World Cup. Since Qatar, we really haven't seen much of Sargent. So maybe it's time to give him a look and see what he can do. I still think Balogun is our starter for now, based on how he has played for us. People forget he also scored 2 of our 3 goals in Copa America, and they were nice goals too and played quite well. He's one of the few guys, along with Joe Scally, that can hold their head high after that Copa America disaster, fracasa. So this is the roster. It's a good roster. I'm happy with it. I think we'll see how these guys play. And please, let's beat Canada. I don't want the Canadian fans coming in and, you know, getting boasting rights over us, even though we have an interim coach and they don't. And by the way, Canada fans, if you're watching, credit to you. Not only did you have a great Copa America in terms of results, but also you've been sending your guys to great moves. Moisés Bombito, congratulations, went from Colorado, largely off the back of a very good summer, to now playing in Liga. Can't remember the club. And then Derek Cornelius, now over at Marseille. So good for them. That's on top of all the other moves that have been happening with, you know, Kone and Alistair Johnson. And of course, you have the usual suspects, Davies and David. Good for Canada, doing what Mexico is not, sending their guys abroad, building a competitive team with a good coach, Jesse Marsh, for Canada and the way they want to play. And I'm looking forward to that game, because although Mexico is our traditional rival because of history, from a quality perspective, it's Canada now. It's USA and Canada. And I hope that Canada can continue to grow as a soccer nation and become a real force in the region consistently, right? Not just in, we beat you in World Cup qualifying, but in the domestic tournaments as well, like Gold Cup and Nations League. So let's see what happens. Great roster. Mikey Varas will be in charge. I wish I had more of an update on Pochettino. I think we are all just waiting for that. But as of now, I have nothing to report. Thanks for watching, guys. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. If you're new, welcome. I forgot to say that at the beginning. With Pochettino, it's going to be a very, very exciting 2 years, culminating in the World Cup here at home and an ever-improving player pool and rosters, guys. So have a great week. Happy Labor Day weekend. Talk to you soon.